Welcome to the Reality OS and Tracy Connor's least favorite time slot.
It's true.
Starting off great. Love that.
And if you agree, please let us know in the comments.
That's right. Except that I don't see that we've got anybody following us at this moment. But maybe, somebody, there's
Live on
Hugh.
Live. There we
Okay,
go.
so people are people are popping in.
Popping.
Hi everybody, I'm Peter Duke, and Tracy Connors and I are joined from Whip. I can never get it right. We're joined by Elle
Hi.
from somebitchtoldme.com and other places on the internet, and we're discussing changing things around today because you haven't seen us for a while, and part of that is because Tracy has been promoted and she has a great job, and so she's very busy, and Sundays are a terrible day for her, and but I like doing Sundays, so we're trying to figure out how we can do both. So maybe what we'll do is Lauren and I we're talking about doing Sundays, and then Tracy and I we're going to either do another time slot or we're going to do pre-recorded stuff. But that way we could just keep creating content for you guys, and then we can keep the ball rolling. But we haven't done this for a while, and so we needed to get back to it, and so here we are.
I love it.
You love it,
I love it.
Lauren. How have you been?
Oh boy. It kind of changes hour by hour at this point in time. But overall, doing quite well and happy to be here. Happy to see you and Tracy. I haven't talked to Tracy in forever. And I don't know, happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Patrick Bateman.
I did Lauren's Tracy. Tracy, that you might cringe, but I did Lauren's stream for 3.5 hours the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can do that as long as there's bathroom breaks.
I did. I don't think we had a bathroom
No,
break.
we didn't. It was just, I don't know. I mean, we do the same thing. Tracy, we do the same thing too. When we all get talking, it just never ends. So I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting because I got a call a couple weeks ago from an airline pilot who's a fan of the show, and she's part of the airline pilot movement, and they wanted some kind of communication advice, and so I did a Zoom call last week with a bunch of airline pilots, which is pretty interesting.
Well, will any of them come on here and talk to us?
Well, let's see if they have jobs next week. If they don't have jobs next week, I'm sure we can get them all on here. But I think that they're like kind of dancing that wire right now,
Yeah. Which airline was it this weekend that canceled thousands of flights? Delta?
American Airlines.
It was
American was 7. Let me see. I think I have it written
It
down
was
here.
1,000 flights, and they blamed staffing
High
shortages or staffing issues and the wind.
High winds in Texas. Yes.
Oh yeah, I have a meme actually of
good.
that. But
Were you talking to any pilots from American?
I was talking to pilots it was a Zoom call with 5 pilots, and they were all from different airlines. And
What did they want you for, Peter?
because they wanted media strategy, and it's interesting because a lot of the things that I suggest go against what I would call conventional wisdom, because media manipulation is not really about being conventional; it's about being unconventional. And the thing that's interesting about airline pilots is that as a group, as a professional group, they probably are among the top tier of rule followers of any group that's out there. That is, if you've got a group of different professions, right? And the people are more likely to follow the rules or not follow the rules. I would say that airline pilots are probably like right at the top of, we follow the rules, right? We do what we're supposed to do. We do what the government tells us to do. We do what our, what makes sense in order to keep people alive in the air. And so to start to suggest that they go against their nature becomes difficult, right? It becomes difficult for them to kind of get their arms to have a comfort zone in doing that.
But at the same time, aren't pilots kind of risk takers by nature? I mean, I think about the right stuff. And that's fighter pilots. I get it. But a lot of these commercial airline pilots were Air Force.
Sure, but you know a fighter pilot is pushing the edge. The definition of a successful landing, as far as the joke among pilots is a successful landing is a landing that you can walk away from, right? And if you're an airline pilot, I think a successful landing is a landing that all of your passengers can walk away from.
Valid point.
So maybe when they were in the Air Force, they thought that way, but I think that most airline pilots are they're very safety
The rules
conscious.
you're talking about, the safety consciousness, is a separate thing to me, I think, than asking them to take a jab. They're
Well-
locked in a cockpit. They are socially distanced from everybody else.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's not about the passenger safety at this point.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because one of the recommendations that I made, because they were trying to, the issue that they were working with is that they were working with lawyers who were trying to get them to raise money on the internet. And the lawyers wanted all of the money that was raised on the internet to go to the lawyers.
Yeah.
And
Lawyers do.
yeah, that's what lawyers do, right? And my argument was you need to have you have to have some of that carved out in order for a media strategy, because making videos costs money. Writing stories costs money. Creating press junkets costs money. All of that stuff, requires resources, and so I was bumping up against the attorney argument there. But one of the other things too was that I'm losing my train of thought. Safety
It's okay.
was messaging, because the messaging that the one pilot was on Tucker Carlson, and he gave this speech that sounded like it was probably inspired by Steve Bannon or somebody like that. It was very didactic and freedom oriented. It's all about like freedom and freedom of choice and freedom, and my jaded, one-sided, biased point of view was that the freedom message will get you money if you're trying to raise money, but if you're trying to move people to action, that you need to engage their fear mechanism. So you needed to play on the fact that pilots are about keeping you safe, and you don't want pilots to not be safe, and pilots want pilots to be safe. And so the reason that the pilots don't want to do this is because they're having, a conflict about what is safe and what is not safe, because there are some pilots who don't think that, regardless of what the three-letter agencies say or their airline bosses are saying, that doing that thing is safe, and they want to make sure that they're going to keep the passengers safe. And so I thought that safety was probably a much better message than freedom, and we'll see if it sticks. So far, it hasn't. So we'll see what happens.
See if what sticks, your safety message to them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have a pretty decent argument. Who's kept you safer in the past year and a half?
Well, I mean, if I hired some persuasion experts and said, look, we need to play up on the safety thing, we could come up with many different ways to exploit that, and probably drive people to action. I said, there's two things that you need to do. You need to raise money in order to be able to pay your lawyer bills and pay for media. And then you need to be able to drive people to action. What's the action that you want people to take? And that was a struggle. It was a little bit tough for them, not for me. But I'm full of all kinds of crazy ideas. But airline pilots don't like crazy ideas.
No, airline pilots are usually pretty even keeled. I know this is gonna sound weird, so hear me out before you're like, what the hell? I like to read about plane crashes because I like to read like the transcript of what happened, leading up to, and how level-headed they usually are right up until the moment of no return. And
Right.
I think it's fascinating how cool they are under pressure. Pilots, rather. Sorry, that's
Yep.
kind of a non sequitur, but
Indeed.
I think it's fascinating.
What's your favorite plane crash story, Lauren?
Ooh, I think probably, I don't, using the word favorite is kind of.
Okay, I'll tell you mine, and I'll tell you mine, and then while I'm telling you, then you can think of yours.
I'll think of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Go
So
ahead.
I read this book. I'm trying to remember which book it was. I think it might have been an Alan Cooper book on software programming. I could be wrong. But the story goes like this: that Korean Airlines, once upon a time in the late 1970s and the early 80s, had like the worst crash record of any airline on the planet. And they hired an American pilot to come over and to take over their pilot training program to figure out what it was that they were doing that was causing them to be so unsafe. And after flying around with them for a while, what he figured out is that they needed to speak English in the cockpit. And the reason that they needed to speak English in the cockpit is because the Korean language is structured in such a way that the honorifics make it so that if someone is younger than someone else, that they're only allowed to speak to them in a certain way. And so the co-pilots were being, if the co-pilot saw something that the pilot needed to be aware of that was going to cause a problem for that flight, because of the structure of the Korean language, they weren't presenting it in a way that had any sense of urgency to the pilot. And so the thing that the American guy did is that he had them, because all of the Korean pilots also spoke English, he required them to speak English in the cockpit. And once they changed over to English in the cockpit, I think that they've got one of the best accident records of any airline now. So all they did was they changed the language. So that's my favorite airline. It's not really a
Related
crash, but
story.
yeah.
So I'm trying to remember the name of it. So there was one that I think is really fascinating, and most everyone survived in the crash. I think it was Aloha Flight 243.
Is that where the top of the plane came off?
Yes, because the theory behind it about why it happened is, well, okay. Again, don't think that I'm enjoying these things when I read about them, but it's fascinating. So, one flight attendant was sucked out of the plane, and the theory is there's basically two theories of how it happened. One is that there was a puncture in the fuselage, and so rapid depressurization, and thus like the explosive sort of the basically the top of the entire plane on one section was just gone. There's another theory that there was a hole in the fuselage, and the flight attendant, because was pulled into that just tiny, I don't know how big the hole was, maybe like so big, but there's a theory that the flight attendant was pulled into the hole, and because she plugged up that hole, there was a like sudden loss of pressure, and then they regained pressure, and then there was another, like, it's called a fluid hammer is what happened, where essentially she was pulled into it and it caused like explosive like depressurization, and like the top of the plane came off. But they recovered the flight, and other than her and I think one other person, everyone lived. But it's just if you look up, yeah, it is 243. If you look up online, or I don't know if I can.
Here it is.
Yeah, like they landed the plane looking like that,
Wow.
which is insane. But yeah, the theory is that a flight attendant was pulled into a hole, maybe the size of like your fist, and it like caused the top of the roof to blow off, which is crazy.
So this is something you would use in a video to prove that pilots keep us safe, right, Peter?
Right, exactly.
I think the pilots, I think they're more level-headed than most people, at least while flying. I
You
don't
would hope.
I don't really care. I don't really care what they do otherwise, but no, I mean, that's the reason why I like to read about them, is just how level-headed they stay under pressure. There's another one. I think it's I'm looking it up. Yeah, Japan Airlines flight 123, where they were struggling to they rapid decompression. They were also not able to control the altitude at all, but they were fighting the entire time. Every time they would go up, I guess past the line where there's not enough oxygen in the air, and they
It's around 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You start to get lightheaded.
So they weren't able to control how high or low the plane was. So every time they'd go above, I guess 10,000 feet or wherever that line is, the hypoxia would start to kick in, and so they would start kind of giggling and losing their train of thought, and then they would get down below the 10,000 line and start regaining their consciousness, and then they would fight back for control of the plane. And I think pretty much everyone, I think but 4 people died. So it's a horribly tragic ending. But reading the transcript is fascinating. Like, I could not imagine being in that situation. I think I would just like hope for it just to end. I don't know. I can't handle stress like that. So it just takes a special person to be a pilot for sure. I think.
Well, the one thing I used to fly in small planes a lot too, and the thing that struck me, somebody said, aren't you afraid of small planes? They're so dangerous. And it's like, the thing is that if you know pilots, then you understand that they don't want to die as much as you don't want to die. Like that, like they don't jump in a plane and say, "Oh, I'm going to make a bad decision today and kill myself." Like that's not, most pilots,
Boy.
Pilots do things like they walk around the plane and they check the wings, and then they check the engines, and then they go check they check the tire pressure, and they're checking this and they're checking that, and they get in the cockpit and they pull out a clipboard and there's a checklist, and they go down the checklist, and they're very careful usually. My experience, all in all. So
So people are saying in the DLive chat, sorry to interrupt, apparently Jen Psaki has tested positive for COVID.
good. Then she gets the good antibodies, right? Or has she been? I'm sure she's been vaccinated.
Come on.
I'm sure she's been.
She says she has. Yes, this very, very rare breakthrough thing.
Yeah, I'm sure she's been vaccinated, right?
Haha, happy Halloween, bitch. Sorry. Sorry.
Well, let's all
Am I-
pray
am I-
for Jen Psaki and make sure that she's
Yeah,
there. That she's safe and everything's okay.
Thoughts
Because
and prayers and thoughts and prayers.
I don't know. I was looking at the death totals from Ireland. I was watching a video I tweeted out earlier,
Are they less than 1,000?
the difference between 2019 and 2020 was less than 1,000. There was a great live stream yesterday with Jason Burmis and Whitney Webb. But be prepared. There's no hopium in this video. And
No, Whitney is not on the hopium, but
Yeah.
I love her.
I don't think she was ever on the hopium. No,
No,
Yeah.
She's brilliant though.
absolutely.
I'm gonna
So
talk to her
anyway.
about- So yeah, I know. So what's your? I also like to read about bear attacks.
Okay.
you like to
I
read
don't
about?
I don't know, man. I don't like to watch scary things, but I think there's also like a sense of like morbid fascination with things and kind of knowing like what happens. And there's a type of bear in Asia, particularly in India, called a sloth bear. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but sloth bears are more aggressive than like any other bear, and actually get like.
Do they have big talons like tree sloths?
Look one up real quick. There's one. It's called like the sloth bear of like Mysore that
Yeah.
stalked like families and like killed like 20 people. They're super aggressive, but they look so cute and fuzzy. They have big fluffy ears. But it's like the most aggressive bear on the planet. I don't know. I don't like to watch scary stuff, so I like to read about it just to It's good to remind yourself how mortal you actually are. Don't take it all too seriously.
Is it? Is it?
I think so. I think it's healthy.
Well, as you get older, it becomes less and less entertaining, I think.
Well,
I'm a boomer. I'm sorry.
here's this sloth bear. Hang on. Screen sharing. Okay, cool. Here it is. It's so fuzzy, but it'll like murder you. Oh, I don't know if I. Oh,
There we go.
Look at him. Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, he's
looks
got
nice.
kind of
But-
long
yeah,
fingernails
a
there.
little
Yeah.
tail.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the most aggressive bear in the entire world. Did you know that?
No. And where is it indigenous to?
I believe India or in Asia in particular. Sloth bear. I don't know how to say that word. Native to the Indian subcontinent, feeds on fruits, ants, and termites. So yeah, it's mostly eats bugs, things like that. But they are very, very, very aggressive, and yeah, they get. It's like the what was the name of the guy? Yes, also to that, Liza, I don't know. There's like a whole section on their Wikipedia here, like relationships with humans. Sloth bears are one of the most aggressive extant bears, and due to large human populations awfully closely, like there's like a whole section and like breakdowns of. I don't know. I think it's fascinating. I like reading about lots of things that will never ever do me any good in the real world, but that's okay. That's
All right.
one of
So in the spirit of rearranging the deck chairs, we've talked about airline pilots. Now we've talked about bears, and Liza Jane asked us about Scooter's
Scooters,
movie.
yeah.
Okay. Have you guys seen Scooter's movie yet?
Mm-hmm.
You have?
He sent me the preview link.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I thought he would. So
Yeah.
I've seen Scooter's movie all the way through, all three episodes, and it's fantastic. It's really good. Actually, it's been sandbagged. Actually, that movie's been in the can for a little while now. So the timing on the thing is interesting. And why now? I don't know the answer to the question, but Fox Nation decided that it was better to come out now than it was earlier, I suppose. And I tweeted out the question: what would the Warren Commission have been like if there was a free media that was interpreting evidence in real time?
Well, you would have had this Bruder film that
Right.
day, if
Right.
not multiple angles. Not
Right.
waiting until when was it? 72 that it was finally shown on television.
I think it was 70. I think it was 6.5 years later, or
Okay.
that the Zapruder film. And what about the 9/11 Commission? The 9/11 Commission took 4 years. I think it started 4 years after. 2005 is when the 9/11 Commission started, and it's like, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I worked in 2007. I was working at a place, and we had a creative director when Jason Burmis's Loose Change, Jason Burmis and some other. And it's funny because I had a friend, Michael Parker, who's been on this show, who did music on Loose Change, and I had to get rid of him because every time I walked into an edit bay, he was sitting there with the producers and the editors talking about Loose Change instead of editing the job we were working on. So after warning the guy like a half a dozen times that we actually had work to do and he wouldn't stop talking about it, I had to get rid of him. I'm a little embarrassed by that because I didn't really watch that movie until recently. And if something like that had come out and I don't think that movie. I think that movie came out in 2007. But if it had come out in 2002 or 2003, how much different would the world have been? Especially if people had been able to pay attention to it. I'm not sure there was YouTube then, though, right?
I think YouTube is 2007. Oh, you're
Yeah,
you're talking about
2008.
2002. Yeah.
Yeah.
2008. Yeah.
And maybe that's why Loose Change came out then. Maybe Loose Change was done before that, but YouTube didn't exist yet.
So it's an hour long.
Loose Change?
So
No,
Several hours.
it's like a 2-hour movie. If you go to Jason Burmis's channel, he's got like 5 documentaries on there. That's one of the 5 documentaries that he did.
And they've made multiple now sequels to it, haven't they? Or at least
Yeah.
one.
Well, they've made the final version. It's called. I think they updated it a little bit. But you combine that with the work that James Corbett's done on 9/11. The James Corbett 9/11 whistleblowers video is pretty damning.
And the stuff that Richard Grove has put together too.
And the stuff that Richard Grove has put together. I mean, you put Richard Grove, Jason Burmis,
Get everybody under one roof.
you put all of those people together, and all of a sudden you have different narratives, right, than the official thing.
Do
It's
you two, having seen Scooter's movie, think it's going to change anybody's mind?
well. Here's the issue: is it going to? No. It's if you first of all, it's on Fox Nation, so it's behind a firewall, right? So that's going to be a problem. Everybody who watches it is going to agree with it. I think it's very interesting, though, because the left seems to
They're
reflect.
terrified of it.
Well, I don't know if they're terrified of it, but they're giving Fox all kinds of free marketing because they're they're paying, they're creating an environment where people are paying attention to something that if the Daily Beast hadn't mentioned it, it probably would go right by them because it's behind this firewall, right? It's behind this paywall. So now that creates an audience, and people are going to want to go see it. And I'm sure that Fox Nation's subscriptions have gone up, and somebody will leak it and they'll put it up on Rumble or something, and you'll be able to see it. But I still think that because it's behind that firewall and it's not running out on the open internet, that the audience for it is probably limited, and it's going to be mostly people whose biases are being confirmed by it. That said, it's very good. It's very well done. I think that it should be on the open internet. I think everybody should see it because if nothing else, I'm in the movie, by the way, for I think one frame. Yeah. Maybe two. There's 2 frames if you count this radically quick zoom where I'm just a blur. I'm just really like a black line, but
that's you, that black line.
I know it's me. I know exactly where I was standing when I was shooting pictures of General Flynn, and Paul. So our friend Jason, who's been on the show, Jason and Paul, who have both been on the show. A lot of the footage in the in Scooter's film is their footage from the Steel movie that they haven't been able to release yet.
I wonder how many amazing projects are out there that just have never seen the light of day.
Well, right, yeah, right. I tweeted out a list of directors that are my friends that I know that are all working on stuff right now, and I think that people should follow them all, just to kind of keep in touch. John Dutoit, who is the co-director with Scooter on Hoaxed. He wrote a song and then recorded a video and then put it out on the internet like a week ago. It's great. It's an anthem. It's a rock anthem on pushing back against the man, kind of probably in the vein of rage against the machine, who have become establishment for the machine.
Right. Yeah. Rage on behalf of the machine.
Rage on behalf of the machine. So anyway, I recommend the movie. It's great. Ali Alexander makes an appearance as a white nationalist, and I
think that he's the world's most misunderstood guy. I love him.
I don't know. He spends a lot of time explaining himself for somebody who's misunderstood, but you're probably right. I mean, if you balance the amount of time that he spends explaining what he's about to the way that it's reported that he is, you're probably right.
Yeah, I think he's great though.
Why can't they release it? Because it's cable television. I
think she's talking about Jason and the Steel.
Oh, thanks. I'm not 100% sure on that story.
I think they're still trying to find a home for it.
Yeah, they were. They had it. I think that they thought that they had it sold a couple of times, and different things happened. They do have another movie though, that's called Q Sent Me, that they are going to release. And I think I might even have a web page for that. Something place Q Sent Me.
I think it's just Q Sent Me.
I'm Q. Breaking news. No, that was before I stopped working. I used to work for a federal contractor, but before I did that, I stayed kind of partially anonymous, just to protect my identity. And there was all sorts of theories floating around on the internet. There was some that I was like 4 Russian guys running a site, that I was a Fed, that I was like in the QAnon or Q circle. I was like, no, I'm just me in my house in Alabama, but I'm flattered, honestly.
They don't think one little girl can do all that work.
No. Well, okay, so Nerms over on D Live says that he says about you, Peter, he says that dude has his pitchfork ready to go.
Yes,
he does.
That's right.
Tactical attack.
Right. In case you don't know, this is my tactical pitchfork. which is
I think it's great.
because black pitchforks are scarier than regular pitchforks, and just to add a little zhuzh to it, maybe I should take it out tonight on Halloween. It's got a quad rail and a scope and a laser on it, so it's all good. Everybody should have. I think that at this moment in time, it's probably the moment that everybody should get their assault pitchforks. Like, go to Amazon. This is a 510. The model is 5-tine manure. It's a 5-tine manure fork.
For the heavy lifting in your
We'll
life.
put it up on our socials, Peter. We'll put it
Okay.
up on the site and on the locals and everywhere. Buy your official
So I understand Locals got bought by
Rumble.
Rumble, right?
Yeah. I
So
have
is
no
that-
idea what it means for us.
Who owned it before?
Dave Rubin had started it, but I
Okay.
think there were investors as well. And
I think
Peter, you
Scott Adams and Byrne, what's his name?
Patrick Byrne.
Patrick Byrne were investors. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am going to step away for just a second. I'll be right back. Though.
Oh no!
Give me like 3 minutes. All right.
All right, get out of here! You bother us. So Tracy,
Yes,
you don't like Sundays.
correct. I don't like late on Sunday.
Right. So just so that everybody who's watching understands, Tracy's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. So it's lovely in the middle of the day here in California, and Tracy's like looking at dinner and getting ready to go to bed and go to work tomorrow. So it's crunch time for her. So but I kind of like doing the Sunday show. So Lauren and I were talking, and Lauren said, "Well, I'll do the Sunday show with you." So we were talking about doing that, and then Tracy also has had some ideas for some pre-recorded shows that she wants to do, and I'm totally open to that, and I'm available anytime to do that. And so I think that moving forward, Lauren and I will show up here on Sundays, and then Tracy and I will
And if I can talk you guys into recording a couple hours earlier on Sunday, I will show up on Sunday.
I can do it earlier on Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I said before. And you were like, no, I like this time. I like 3 o'clock my time.
I don't remember having that conversation, but
I bet you Lauren does. But
okay.
she'll back me up when she gets back.
All right. Yeah, exactly. So somebody says, I always wanted to be a pilot, but I couldn't because I would joke around too much during a crash to mess with passengers. I don't know. Many pilots that I know are quite humorous. They're funny. They've got good senses of humor. I've got a friend who he used to fly Boeings, and then he moved to Airbuses, and he was complaining to me one day how boring it is. And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Well, the Airbuses are so automated that everybody's really a passenger on an Airbus. So he likes flying the plane. He doesn't like the plane flying him. So, anyway, so what do y'all think about days of the week, like Sundays versus other things? I don't see our usual crowd here, but we've been MIA for a while.
It's prime trick or treat time on the East Coast.
So do you think that most of our fans, our fan base, our
Answering
audience,
the door right now.
they're answering the door, or do you think they're out trick or treating?
It could be a combination of both.
Yeah, I went to a party last night, and it didn't occur to me that on the night before Halloween that it might also be and it's a Saturday, it might also be a Halloween party. So I showed up with my street clothes on.
Oh, and were you the only one?
No, there were a lot of people with costumes on. But as I drove up, I saw the people in the costumes in the parking lot, and thinking, maybe a costume would have been good.
It would have been. All right. Well, Peter, there was something that I wanted to talk about with you. We discussed it a little bit the other day on the phone,
Okay.
and that was the on-set shooting on the film Rust. Because
Yes.
both you and I have been on set with guns.
We have. And when I saw that story, I thought somebody messed up because. So just background. Every set that I've ever been on that had guns on. Well, there's one exception, and I can tell you about the exception. But on almost every set that I've ever been on, the armorer is, next to the director and the first AD, probably the most important person on the set. They have more control over what's going on around them than anyone on the set. And that's for good reason, and that's because they're dealing with deadly force. The other thing that a lot of people probably don't realize is that not all movie guns are functioning firearms. There's a lot of weapons that have been modified. They only shoot blanks. They have, they're engineered in a way that they make a big flash come out at the end of the barrel when somebody pulls the trigger, but there isn't any debris or much debris. There's burning cardboard sometimes that comes out at the end of the barrel of the gun, and that's kind of by design. And so movie guns are not always necessarily real firearms. They may look like real firearms, but they're not. And so when somebody does have a real firearm on the set, the fact that it could be loaded with live ammunition it's a mind blower to me. Like, I don't even know how that would happen. These guys, I don't know if it's the same for you, but these guys usually have these Sears Craftsman rolling carts that are lockable, right? So they've got all the weapons, in the cart, and they're locked, and all the ammo is on the bottoms. Yeah, and all on the bottom of the thing is locked, and the security is usually very high on those things, and at least that's some of the experience that I've had. And so when I saw that, I thought something terribly wrong went happen with the process on that set.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea of how seriously it's taken, I worked on a film. It was a larger budget film. This was $6 million budget. This one was $100 million budget. But their three main actors were playing FBI agents. So in pre-production, I was the equivalent. Normally it would be called the key set PA, but in that instance, she came with the AD and she stayed in the trailers all day. So I was the one that would receive all the actors on set. So they decided, because of that, I would go with the actors when they went out to an FBI field place to go learn shooting. So we spent half an hour, 45 minutes in the classroom training on firearm usage, and then went out to the range with the FBI there to guide us through all the safety precautions. And then everybody took it incredibly seriously the entire time. And to Peter's point, the armorers have this stuff under lock and key. Anytime one of them is out, everybody is aware. It's announced as loud as possible by as many people as possible. There's a gun on set. Anybody who wants to can look in the chamber and make sure it's clear. And so, to your point, when I heard this, I was like, this is nuts. Something really went sideways on this. And I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I read is because of COVID protocols.
Yeah, COVID's going to get blamed.
Left these things off the set. That was in the Hollywood Reporter.
I know. I saw it and I thought, oh, they're going to blame COVID for this. It's like,
right.
Well, the other thing too is people will criticize the National Rifle Association, but the rules that are basically the official National Rifle Association rules for gun safety, which were originally crafted by Bill Cooper, who ran a place that's still a gun training facility in Prescott, Arizona, called Gunsight Academy. The first rule of gun safety is don't ever aim a gun at something that you don't intend to destroy. Period. Like, you just don't do it. And Alec Baldwin could say all he wants about the NRA and whether or not guns should be legal or not, but that's the number one rule of gun safety. Don't aim a gun at anything that you don't mean to destroy. Right,
and don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot something.
Exactly. And so, there's just all kinds of things that went sideways. I was there was a TV show that a friend of mine was on that was about Vietnam, and I went to go visit him on the set once, and he thought it would be funny to send a 4x6 out with a guy and at Indian Dunes. And I drove out there, and this guy comes rumbling out in this big, giant army truck, and he gets out, and he takes an M16, and he throws it at me like a drill sergeant, like this. And I just grabbed the rifle, and reflexively, I dropped the magazine, and I pulled the bolt back to make sure there was nothing in it, and then I threw it back at him, and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" You know? And he said, "Well, you know, the guys thought you'd think this was cool." And I said, I don't know. It's like weapons are weapons. Like, you know, they're not toys.
No,
So,
no, they're not. And the the first AD should have known better.
yeah, exactly.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately it's Baldwin's fault because he's the one that pulled the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
But the first AD, if I looked through his credits because having been an AD, I was like, oh Jesus. You know, I could have been in that situation. I never firsted on a movie that had firearms, but I was definitely in the AD department on films that did. And he's the one that handed him the gun. And if you look through his credits,
Hey, Chris.
I was like, you know, maybe he hasn't done any films that have weapons before. And you don't have to go too far back in his IMDb to find movies that are just like everybody has a gun.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he's the guy that handed it to him. He supposedly checked it. Yeah.
Not very well.
No, not
One
very
might
well.
assume.
Yeah, I mean, there was all of this rhetoric going on too about, you know, you hand a gun to somebody. Tim Pool was going on about this. It's like you hand a gun to
boy.
somebody. If you hand a gun to somebody, you have to, like, if it's a revolver, like a cowboy gun, then you've got to take all of the rounds out and inspect them. And it's like I've seen situations where the armorer loaded the gun in front of the person
Right.
with the blanks, but I haven't ever seen it where somebody like dumped rounds out and then put them back in again.
If
to
you
check.
asked for it, they would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
you-
everybody's trying to be as safe as possible. So if
Sure.
anybody feels uncomfortable, and you know, these are people that are supposed to be terrified to death of guns. And
correct.
yet they don't behave as if they are.
A gun is a machine. That's what I don't understand. You don't. Anyways.
But just to be fair to Tim Pool, he did say that Alec Baldwin is 100% responsible.
Yes, he did.
He was not
Yeah,
trying to make any kind of, you know, an out for him at all. He's just saying, if you're the person that pulled the trigger, you're responsible.
right. And you know, just restating. I mean, having been on sets, it's the responsibility of those people to do that stuff. And if somebody don't ever take a gun for granted. Gun people don't take guns for granted. You know, the most dangerous thing I ever saw at a range was some guy teaching his girlfriend how to use a gun without teaching her gun safety first, and that was scary because she was
Sorry,
she was
I'm trying to
sweeping
attack
she
my
was sweeping
headphone
all
cord.
of us.
Stop! Stop! She's trying to take my headphones away from me. Hey, ow! Sorry.
That's all right. Cats are
Never a
all-
dull moment around Casa de El. Stop! Oh my god.
Anyway,
It's like having
So-
a toddler that can.
so I saw my old friend Chris Fusco popped in and said hi. So Chris and I
Hi,
worked
Chris.
on the X-Files together.
Ooh, very cool.
Ooh, yes, at Fox. So we're back. Somebody's selling their 9mm SIG. Let me see. Back to the gun store. Can't get practice ammo. You can't get practice.
Ammo, yeah, you can't find ammo anywhere right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Tracy and I have a friend who has been stockpiling ammo for years, and he hadn't realized what the prices were, and he went to the range the other day and blew off, about $500 or $600 worth of ammo without realizing that it was $500 or $600 worth of ammo, and
Ooh.
everybody at the range was looking at him like he was crazy.
What are you doing?
So,
And
anyway,
I can't find any like 38 special rounds anywhere right now around here that are not like, super pricey.
I can rig you. I can
Yeah?
rig plus P.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can rig you.
I don't know if I want to rig my pistol.
I don't know if we should be talking about this on YouTube though. It's probably like
Yeah.
It's a euphemism for
Tracy's
for
going,
COVID safety. My bad. We can talk after the show. How about that?
we could talk after the show. Yeah.
You know it's bad when you can't find ammo in Alabama.
So you
Things are rough around the farm.
No, they're selling to out-of-state people that can't get it.
Probably.
38 plus P. Anyway, does anybody else have any other questions about gun safety on set or anything? I mean,
So
I kind of
I missed the first bit. So I read, and I don't know if this is true, and I suppose you might know this. I read that you're supposed to discharge the first round into some sort of target or to test it first. Is that true, or is that just some bullshit that someone made up? Because there was a lot of.
That's some bullshit somebody made up.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not discharging weapons on set.
no, and there's
Just
a,
make sure.
and there's an announcement before that take that the gun is going to get fired in that take. You know, it's
Yeah, and like they were running a rehearsal with this. So what happened, as far as I can piece together based on the search warrant, was that Dave Halls is the name of the first AD. He got the gun from the armorer. And he armorer who told him that there was, blanks in the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And so he yelled cold weapon or cold gun and handed it out. And that's how you alert everybody that it's not, there's going to be no firing, there's going to be nothing. So there shouldn't have been anything in the gun if he's yelling cold gun.
Cold gun.
right.
Cold. Yeah.
But the other thing too is that they only, I can imagine that, if you're the DP, right, that you may want a shot like this, right,
Yeah.
where you're looking down the barrel of the gun, and the gun is going to be aimed straight at the camera, or
Right. But then you're not behind the camera.
right then, yeah, because they have these little things called monitors, and you take it
Right.
off, and then
When I first heard the story, I'm like, wait a minute. They would have been sitting at what's called Video Village, where they just set up a bunch of monitors and directors' chairs. That nowhere
unless they were doing
Right.
unless they were doing a dolly move or something, they
I don't know. They were saying I'd seen there's a shot, a photo of them on set, and there's a Steadicam operator there. So I don't know if it was on Steadicam or not because everybody was standing, and from what I've read since then, he was seated in a pew in this church and drawing from there. So I don't know that would necessarily be a Steadicam shot.
Right.
I need my. Sorry, my cat.
No, I have not met Alec Baldwin, although I know that Max Kaiser spent election night 2016 with Alec Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin or Alec Baldwin?
I'm sorry. On election night 2016, Max Kaiser went to, I believe, to Lauren Michaels' apartment in New York to watch the election results with Alec Baldwin, because
I bet that was hilarious.
Max said that he laughed harder than any person. Max said he was laughing all night long and nobody else was laughing.
Max himself was laughing on
Max was laughing, and he and Alec got mad at him, and they haven't spoken since, because
Darn.
because Max thought that it was hysterical, Trump winning, and so no, I don't know Alec, but Billy used to date a friend of mine in the 1980s, and Max and Stephen Baldwin did a show together where they drove across America, and I met Stephen and hung out with him for a day about 5 years ago, and he's a cool dude. I like Stephen. Stephen Baldwin's a cool dude, but.
Those Baldwin brothers, huh?
There's a lot of Baldwins out there, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go off camera for just a second because I need to throw my cat across the room, and I don't want anyone to get me for animal abuse.
You don't want to become another meme?
No. So, BRB again. Sorry.
Okay.
Come here, cat.
All right. So any closing thoughts on that, Trace?
Well, I was thinking, I think I might have told the story on here before, but I did a movie about fly fishing. And in order to get the Humane Society stamp of approval on the film that says no animals were harmed in the making of this movie, we had to have a representative of the National Humane Society on set every day. So this woman got a call sheet. She got lunch, like she was part of the crew, and she would just stand there. So this is dealing with the animals in question here are river trout. And mind you, you are not allowed to actually hook a live fish. In order, if you want to get that, no animals were harmed. You cannot catch a live fish,
Even with a barbless hook?
even with a barbless hook, Peter. So it's so absurd. For some close-up shots, we had a bunch of live trout. And for the close-ups, that's what you would put in the actor's hand. But in a lot of the stuff, they're just dragging around dead fish and all of this. And it's just eye roll, right? And we had a tank of these river trout. And every one of the associate producers, because this is a low-budget film, so associate producers on those movies do a ton of stuff. So he was in charge of keeping that aquarium alive. So there were something like 20 trout in it. So he would come in every day, a couple hours before the Humane Society lady would show up to see if any of them had died throughout the night. And he would just throw them out and go get another one and put them in because they're pretty replaceable. They all look the same. Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget one of the characters, he lived in a little cabin along the river, and he had a river trout in an aquarium. And there were some snails in there. And the room was really, really tiny. So shooting in it was a pain in the ass to get a camera set up and get everybody in there. So we had finally just gotten this shot set up. We're ready to shoot. And she comes to me because I'm the first AD, and she said, you can't shoot. And I said, like, what? What's the problem here? She's like, those snails, they seem to be really stressed out.
No.
And yes. And I said,
how can you tell that a snail is stressed out?
That's what I asked. And she's like, well, they've climbed out of the water. So there was tree branches in the tank, and they had climbed above the water level. And I said, well, didn't they do that on their own volition? Like, nobody forced them to do this. How do you know that that's their stress
Alec Baldwin wasn't aiming a gun at them.
Right. I'm pretty sure they're going to be okay. We're just going to roll with it. I think they'll be fine. If they're not fine this afternoon, we can revisit this, but we're getting the shot. So these are the lengths of the idiocy that you have to go to get that little stamp. So I was thinking going forward, and it may not be the NRA, maybe there's another gun organization that could step up and be on set for any film that has firearms to be somebody that watches over the shoulder of the armorers. And then you get nobody was close to getting shot in the making of this film stamp of approval at the end.
Right. Well, it's always interesting to me. There was a poster stunt that I did a few years ago where Liam Neeson was I think I can find this, but Liam Neeson made a movie called Run All Night, and it was coming out in the movie theaters. And when he was going around doing the promos on the late night talk shows about the movie, he was talking about how he was an advocate of having the Second Amendment repealed and taking guns away from people. And
he's a Brit, right?
The poster of the movie is him doing this, with aiming a gun, like this. So I made some stickers, and the name of the movie was Run All Night, and I changed it to Gun All Right. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of a fun street art thing.
I like your do you want to tell people about your Gavin Newsom street art? Peter is a bit of a
I'm a bit of Gun
artiste.
All Right, Liam Neeson.
I love how everyone's in the chat saying that they missed you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all are very missable.
Here it is, Hollywood Reporter. Okay, I found it. Here we go. Share. No. Oh, I have to stop this screen. Stop this screen, and then I can share.
You got it. I believe in you, Peter.
You can do it.
Boom, there we go.
Oh, nice.
Liam Neeson mocked for gun control comments and fake run. So it says, Gun All Right.
What is that even supposed to mean?
Well, the movie said "Run All Night," so it said RUNALNIGHT, and so I just put a GR, like Guns N' Roses, put a G over the gun and an R over the right, and then it became gun all right.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I
So
like it.
I think
Anyway.
it's interesting. What
So
is
that
the-
was you?
that was it, Peter.
that
Ooh,
was
Peter.
that was me. You know.
I think that's something that I guess, like, not to like speak within like the right left paradigm, because I feel like once you do that you kind of get lost, but I feel like that's something that the right is direly missing, is, you know, more like artists and stuff. I feel like that
Well,
kind of
yeah, and
belongs a little bit in our sphere.
I complained about it for years because Andrew used to say politics is downstream from culture. But recently I was reading something by Curtis Yarvin that kind of struck me as, why didn't I think of that earlier? And that is that culture is downstream from power. And power is money. And so part of the reason that the left is so good at media and the right is so bad is because the left understands that media is the way that you control society. And the right thinks that the way that you control society is by making rules and passing laws and
morality and ethics.
and yelling about my constitution. And the reality is that people, I mean, everything that's going on with this,
dare you.
everything that's going on with, well, did you read in that, that was it, who did the story about the guy on January 6th who was the rabble rouser, and they were all carrying pocket constitutions, all the FBI,
revolver story.
all the FBI agents were carrying pocket constitutions. Yeah, so you know the deal is that media is a much more important and effective way to get people to do things, and all you have to do is look at how many people are going along with, you know, the things that are being mandated. You know, the White House comes out with a press release requiring a procedure to happen, and then all of these agencies start doing it without getting any orders. And all kinds of corporations follow suit and start mandating their employees to do all of these things with no paperwork.
Right. Well, it happened at the state level too.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember going into a hotel downtown here, and there were signs that said masks are to be worn by the mandate of the governor.
Right.
And I was like, that's not a law. And like they were kind of being tongue in cheek about the whole thing by even saying it that way. But none of this was ever law. Not that that makes it any better, but there's no force behind it, and yet people enforced it.
Right. And so, so I used to be mad about it because people on the right don't get it. But at this point, you know, I resigned to the fact that as long, you know, it's like when I was talking to the pilots and they wanted to give all their money to the attorneys. It's like, you can give all your money to the attorneys. I've never hired an attorney who told me that they thought that they weren't going to handle my case well.
Right.
You know, they always say thank you very much when you write them the check, and then, you know, if the judge or the jury decides something that doesn't go in your favor, they can say, well, I tried, I did my best, you know, and oh yeah, I bought a new Mercedes, because I could, you know, with what you paid me, so.
No, your stop should be to hire media consultants now.
Yeah, media consultants is good. I had dinner with a media consultant last night, who's a Republican media consultant, and I said, "How's that going?" And he goes, "I don't really care if they win or lose." He goes, "I still get paid."
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so that's where we are. That's where we live in. That's the world we live in. So politics is downstream from culture, but culture is downstream from power. So, you know, if you go to, I put this webpage up 5 years ago. I think it's like inktankfoundation.com. And it says, looking for a billionaire. No billionaires have left me any messages yet. I've talked to several billionaires about it, and they go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And then they never call me back. But,
Boo.
Well, Peter, if you could demonstrate that there's at least a 4% return.
I tweeted at Elon Musk last week because he tweeted, somebody was it was the grade D Democrat congressperson who nobody's ever heard of was tweeting out that Elon Musk should pay capital gains on his unrealized. You saw that story last week?
Right. Well, I wanted tax deduction on my unrealized losses.
Yeah, that's what I tweeted back. Yeah, I'm happy to let people get taxed on their unrealized gains if I can claim deductions on my unrealized losses. That would be great.
Yeah, tax credits for sure.
That would be great. So anyway, but I tweeted at Elon Musk and I said, if you want to fund a media organization to take care of people like this, take care of messaging like this, I don't want to make the Chuck Johnson mistake of saying to take out this person, right? Then ping me. So I'm checking my phone. No, Elon Musk has not pinged me. So
sorry to be so twitchy, but I got to be right back again. I'm sorry. Be right back.
Okay.
Alrighty then. NFT. Did you see the NFT made from Jeff? Here, I'll put this up. Widener's Tank Man.
No.
No, but I think NFTs are beanie babies for neckbeards. I'm not an NFT guy. I'm not a big fan. If you want to buy my prints, though, if you go to my Peter Duke Photo website and click on Buy Prints, you can buy actual tangible assets that will probably be worth more after I'm not alive anymore. He says, it might be effective to never pay your taxes again. If you don't vote, it'll be harder to detect 100% voting. Maybe. I'm in the process right now. I have a PDF on my desk and filling it out to unregister to vote, because having read Havel, what's his name? Pavel.
Václav Havel?
Václav Havel's, I'm halfway through Václav Havel's Power of the Powerless. I'm going to withdraw from the system, and I'm going to take my name out of the voter rolls. The issue is that when you get a checking account, when you go to any bank and you sign up and you get an account, that long contract that you sign that you don't ever read is basically with the IRS and the Federal Reserve. And it means that if you keep your money in the bank and the IRS wants it, they'll just come take it. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to be out of the system if you're not 100% in cash. And being 100% in cash is difficult. But, to the extent that I can be out of this system without making myself a felon, I'm gonna do that. So that's my new MO at this point. I laugh at people who think that they're going to vote their way out of this, because voting obviously is Joe Biden pooped his pants yesterday in front of the. We have a
Did
president
he really, though? Is that a thing that happened? I couldn't tell.
And Chris is saying there's more sophisticated uses of NFTs. Yes.
I want to know about Biden pooping his pants, Peter.
Okay.
We can wait a second on Chris's question. Sorry, Chris.
Okay.
I don't understand that story.
I don't know. It was reported that, he pooped his pants while he was standing there with Francis. So.
Well, who reported it?
Let's go look. Shall we go look?
No, I'm serious. Like, I woke up this morning and that was trending on Twitter, and I'm like, is this real or not? Because it's, in this timeline, Al Roker shit his pants at the White House and told everybody.
Hey, say again?
Al Roker did that. Do you
Right.
not remember this? When he went to the White House and he had his gastric bypass surgery, and he was like, there's some side effects, and sometimes I let out a shart.
Yeah.
He did that in the Obama White House and told everybody. So
Okay.
there's precedent for this happening before. I find it hard to believe that this is a real thing. I want to believe it, but that's why I was like, this can't be true.
Okay. All I know is I woke up this morning and I saw the story, and then I saw 500 memes. That's what I know.
Yes.
So, And there's other stories that have circulated. Although, to be fair, Chuck Johnson was accused of, shitting the floor when he was in college. That was a thing that went around the internet. I saw that story. Oh, the girl who took her AR-15 to her college in Texas. She became a thought leader, THOT.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what her name was. There was a story that ran around on the internet about how it was the same story. It was basically the same Chuck Johnson story that had been recycled for her.
Okay.
So that seems to be a meme, right?
Yeah.
When in doubt, pooping in public is a thing. So okay. So we've established that we're not sure if that's true or not. Yeah, Caitlin Bennett. That's right, Caitlin Bennett.
Correct.
So if
we want it to be true.
we want it to be true, right?
All right. So now we can get back to Krista's question. Oh, no, wrong question. There we go.
We did. There's more sophisticated uses of NFTs. Yes, I assume that if you're in a metaverse economy, and it's funny because Chris and I, we worked at News Corps together, and so we grew up in the snow crash world. And I talked about this on Lauren's show the other day, but when John Carmack was interviewed, I may have it in this book called Masters of Doom. When John Carmack was originally interviewed about why he wrote Quake, he said he was trying to create the metaverse. Cut to Palmer Luckey building Oculus. The code that Palmer Luckey used in order to create Oculus was Doom code, which was written by John Carmack. And then he sold the company to Facebook and then hired John Carmack to be the CTO. So John Carmack is the CTO of Oculus. So the software that the metaverse is running on is that John Carmack code, which is interesting because he was talking about in the 90s. That's what he wanted to do. So he's achieved his achievement unlocked, right?
Yes.
But in a world where, in the metaverse world that was constructed in the book Snow Crash, and if you haven't read Snow Crash, I highly suggest that everybody catch up, because everything that Facebook is doing and everything that the New World Order is doing and everything that the World Economic Forum is doing and everything that the United States government is doing right now, okay, is forecasted in that book, Facebook, Snow Crash.
And what year was that, Peter? Was it in the 90s? At the
I
time?
believe it was 92 or 91. It was before the World Wide Web. That book came out before the World Wide Web. And so, catch up, read that book. It's a great book. It's a really good book. And unfortunately, in the world, Chris, 100%. Forget Neuromancer or Ready Player One. Ready Player One is the worst book I've ever read. Because it has this conceit that every time the hero gets to a point where he can't move forward without doing something magical, he goes, oh, and then I remembered, and remembers something that was never mentioned in the book before, and then solves the puzzle and then moves on to the next level. And it's just really one of the, I was reading that book and I threw it against the wall a couple of times. It's the laziest writing I've ever seen. But Peter, you needs a haircut? No, I think it's just, I think my hair looks pretty good right now, but I think that I washed it and then I put the headphones on, so it's not looking good. Snow Crash. Where were we?
Yeah,
Oh,
you were saying
NFTs.
you-
Chris
yeah.
Chris was asking about NFTs. So if you're in a virtual environment where the thing that you have has special powers, so imagine that you're like in the old, there was the first massively multiplayer game. I'm trying to remember what it was called. And then any of these massively multiplayer games, and you have to think of the metaverse as just a persistent, massively multiplayer game that you can jump in and you can interact with all the time. If there's something in that world, right, that gives you a superpower or gives you a look or something that other people cannot achieve, cannot have, then that becomes of value in that world, right? And so the thing is about NFTs is that they're completely contextual to the world that they're being displayed in. So I don't think that the World Wide Web is necessarily a format or a platform where NFTs have any value, but in the metaverse they might, right? If there was to use Snow Crash as an example, the hero whose name is Hiro, Hiro, protagonist. He's got dual katana swords that he pulls out and he whips around and he cuts people's arms off and does all kinds of stuff in the metaverse. If you are the only person who has those katanas in the metaverse, then they become special in the metaverse, right? So to that extent that, digital assets become important in the environment that they are contextual to, but that outside of that, I don't think they have any value at all. So
No, it's like the tulips.
yeah. It must be good. Written by Stevenson. It must be good. Stevenson's a great writer, but
No, he's laughing because it's his last name too.
I see. Right, but I had one of our fans started emailing me this week because apparently there's and her family is from a small island off the coast of Scotland.
The Orkneys?
No, it's not the Orkneys, and there's in the Baroque cycle, which is I think it's 12 volumes, or it's a bunch of volumes by Neil Stevenson, where he follows Isaac Newton and alchemy and all of this kind of 14th century intrigue. And there's a island called Quiglum that is in that book, and she's from an island that sounded very much like the island from the Stevenson book. And then she let me know that an architect named Stevenson, spelled with a V, built all of the lighthouses in Scotland and Ireland. So I thought that was weird and coincidental.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, it is a cool story.
All right, and now that Lauren's back, I'm taking off.
Yeah, sorry.
You're going to take off?
Yeah, I told you I was going to be out at 7, and then she bounced. So I was like, I'll stick around so you don't have to talk to yourself, Peter.
Okay,
Sorry,
so you.
Tracy, I didn't mean to hold you hostage.
All right, so see you later. See you later, Tracy. And for all of you Tracy fans out there, Tracy and I will be doing recorded things later, or maybe another day of the week, not Sunday.
And if we can pick an earlier time on Sunday, maybe on Sunday.
I'm
So we'll leave it as a mystery.
okay.
It's
All right.
Halloween.
Now
it's a
that
good time
Lauren's
for-
back,
it's a good
she
time
can-
for spooky mysteries. Yeah.
Yeah. She can back me up, though. And I said I'd like to do it at an earlier time on Sunday. And Peter said, I like this time.
I'm not playing this game. I'm not. I'm a
Mom
child
and
of
Dad are
divorce. I
fighting
am.
again.
I'm a child of divorce. I know how these games work.
All right. Well,
All right. See you later, Tracy.
Bye, Tracy. It's good to see you. I don't know why I
Good to
washed
see
those
you.
hands, but I did it anyways.
Well, thank you.
So,
All right.
yeah, sorry I had to dip out for a second. I always forget to put my trash out on Sundays, and I had to gather. So, sorry.
No, that's okay. Trash stories.
A trash story. Well,
So what happens that you'll get off the stream and then you'll forget to go do it, so you have to do it in the middle of the stream?
Well, so I have a reminder set on my phone because they come and pick it up in my area of the city. I'm first on the stop list, and so sometimes they come on Sunday night instead of Monday morning. They start super late at night. I guess because it's warmer in Alabama. I guess that's why they do it here like that. But so if I don't put my garbage out by the road by 8, sometimes they'll already have come and gone. So I gotta do that. And I have,
All right.
I have a lot of garbage this week, so I want to put it out.
All
Sorry,
righty.
that's fun facts about Elle.
Yeah, and Tracy's not here to hear this, but maybe I was busy on Sunday mornings before, and I'm not so busy on Sunday mornings now. So
Oh my gosh. I think Peter, I think that there's a very good solution to all of this, and that would be communication.
It might be communication,
Yeah.
which is the subject of the podcast that we talk about all the time, is about how people communicate.
Well, it's a lot easier to examine things from the outside than it is sometimes to do your own self-reflection. Because I've found that I have a hard time. I think that I communicate things well with people, and then I realized that I think, what was it? Was it Derrida who did a lot of the examination of signs versus signifiers and kind of the breakdown between what you're trying to say and what you're actually saying? I find that sometimes I think that people are following along with me really well, and I've explained maybe a quarter of what I was actually trying to convey.
Right.
So, it happens. So.
Well, yeah, it's and that's an interesting frame too, because I used to get annoyed, upset, bothered, angry at people when I would ask them to do something and they wouldn't understand what I was saying. And I don't know when I flipped the switch. It was probably, I don't know. It's just a management technique, but I started assuming that if I asked somebody to do something and they didn't do it, it was because I didn't communicate it well. I didn't actually frame it in a way that they could understand. And so I would apologize. I'd start with an apology and say, look, I'm sorry. Maybe you misunderstood me, but I was trying to explain to you that I want you to do this. And
that reminds me of writing back when I worked in an office, like all the corporate speak, as per my last email, which basically means like, bitch, can you read?
Right. Well, when Chris and I were working at Virgin, so Chris, who's watching us now, Chris and I worked we worked three different places. He and I worked together at News Corp, and then I liked working with him so much that I brought him into Virgin, and then he left Virgin and went and worked at someplace else, and then I got another job at another place, and then I brought Chris back in.
Long-standing bromance.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I figured out early was when we were at Virgin was when Chris and I were at Virgin, we were the only we had come from News Corp where we had done nothing except build websites for years. And we had all communicated with email and chat or IRC chat or whatever it is, AOL chat, whatever it was at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then we were kind of thrown into this company with a bunch of people who basically had worked at record stores. They had no technological background whatsoever.
What's the time period of this? When was this?
1999.
Okay.
And one of those people was Michael Parker, who's been a guest on this show. Okay. And so what happened when we put all of these people on emailing each other is that people started having arguments, fights, and they were all sitting in cubicles, like next to each other, like sending each other emails and having fights with each other, like
oh, man.
Instead of just turning around to the person and talking to them, it was.
Oh, that was one thing when I had to because for over a decade I worked in restaurants, whether in management or as a bartender or whatnot. So when I finally did make the jump to an office setting, which I did, Peter was a mentor. He's mine now. Back off. Peter's my life coach. He just doesn't know it. But when I first transitioned into an office setting, I was used to, if you had I guess, granted, I know it's different, like working in a bar, but if you had like a tiff with another bartender or with another manager on shift, you just go, hey, what's the deal? Let's just squash this so we can move on, because we have too much to do together and we're working too hand in hand to be at each other's throats. But in an office setting, yeah, it's there's all those you have to document it in writing rather than just
So I wrote
around the corner of the cubicle.
So I wrote this memo. And the memo that I wrote said, if you're going to write a business email, you may only use one pronoun in the email. You may not use the word should unless you are using it with the pronoun I, which uses up your pronoun quota. Okay, yeah. And you may not use absolutes just leave them out. So the best, the worst, I love that, I hate that. Just leave absolutes out of the conversation. And I sent it out to the entire company, and the president of the company hit reply, and he said, "I should say so."
Clever.
That was his response. But that ended, I would say, 98% of the email arguments that we had in the company just by coming up with this communication rules.
Well, we kind of talked about that when you came onto my show on Thursday, how speaking in absolutes, or what was it? Like if someone says, I always do this, or they always do this.
Yeah,
they always do.
Right. In NLP, those are called universal quantifiers, meaning taking any kind of quantification and moving it out to the extreme, right? The best or the worst, right?
There's so much hyperbolic speech in this world. It drives me nuts.
Well, once you start to recognize things like universal quantifiers, then you start to see them all over the place, right? You start to see this language, especially in in talking head media, right?
Oh yeah. The outrage machine.
Yeah. If then so. Yeah. I'm. Where's my book? It's over there. Hang on.
Oh, now I've got everybody alone. Hey, everybody. How's your Sunday? Did you dress up for Halloween today? You handing out candy? Super cool. I'm glad we had this chat. Welcome back, Peter.
This is my favorite current
Light of no.
hypnosis book. Sleight of Mouth: The User's Guide to Sleight of Mouth.
That's not how you spell slight, though. What is that? What's in that context? What does that word mean? Hang on.
I've slighted you.
Oh. Okay. I just never knew it was spelled differently, but I guess so.
Anyway, sleight of mouth is there's a speech pattern that almost everybody on television uses, which is if then so, which is like if this happens, then it means this, so that happens. Okay, and the reality is that in many situations, the if then is false, and it could be false because the if is false, or it could be false because the then is false, or it could be false because of the cause between the if and the then is false. And then it goes to so this happens. Okay, so then between the then and the so, there's the same kind of relationship. And so if you just kind of analyze the words and look at it, it's pretty easy to kind of take a lot of these arguments apart. If then so. And so this book is all about that. Because there's basically there's 14 different ways that you can take apart an if then so.
What's the full title of the book again? Sorry.
The full title of the book is The User's Guide to Sleight of Mouth, because the book Sleight of Mouth is by another guy. It's by, I'm trying to remember what his name is. I don't remember. This one is by Doug O'Brien. But the user's guide to sleight of mouth. The sleight of mouth book is written by a psychologist, and it's very, I would say, academic. This book it's less academic, but it basically shows you the 14 different ways that you can look at if then so language constructs, and then deconstruct them, and then come back with some kind of a reply. Somebody
Very
says
cool.
Better than Doug Band. Who's Doug Band?
I don't know.
Um,
I'm seeing if. Oh, okay.
oops.
There's a lot of free books on archive.org, but anyways, I just. Oh, never mind. I found the PDF. Haha. You wouldn't pirate a book? Yes, I would.
And the PDF is good. And the look for the hidden URL. There's a YouTube URL that's an unpublished video that comes with the book, where he kind of walks through it, and you might get a bunch of value of the book just by looking at that link.
I want to create a tool. I don't know if this already exists, but I was thinking about that the other day, because there's a lot of unpublished videos on a lot of our 3-letter agencies' YouTube channels. And I wonder if there's a way to write some sort of, sorry, I know this is a complete departure.
Tangent.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's a way to write some sort of like program or some sort of tool to, I guess, detect unpublished videos for channels, because I found a really great one the other day on our FBI's YouTube, just completely unpublished.
Really?
It was embedded.
Interesting.
It was embedded somewhere, and I was like, "Wow, this has like no views." And then I went to it, and I saw that it was unlisted, and I was like, "What?" So I just wonder how many videos there are out there that we've never seen.
Well, you could write a spider that would.
I could not.
Okay, I'm just saying. Someone could write a spider that crawls web pages that looks for links to videos that are not public on YouTube. So you'd have to crawl the entire public internet to be able to do that. You may be able to script Google. You know, there's a friend of mine, Keith, who's got a search engine called 50KFT, 50,000 feet is the name of the search engine. So it's 50kft.com, and it's basically the old Google. Because Google has all these algorithms that are running on top of it that sort everything for you, right? But Google also has an API that allows you to use the Google search algorithm and then modify it in any way that you want.
Right.
And so the modifications that he's done is that he's turned off all of Google's algorithms.
Oh.
So
Nice.
it's vanilla Google.
It's probably more fun.
It works pretty well.
I have a search engine that I feel like not a lot of people know about, but I use it all the time. It's called iSeek.ai. And
Yeah.
it's like a super, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But once you start searching with it, like it breaks stuff down into categories and by location and time period on the left side and like a little toolbar. So I really like it, but it can make your it can take up a lot of memory on your on your browser, so be careful with that. But it's a lot of fun.
So this is it?
So go to iSeek.com. That's the actual. That's
Yeah.
The actual, but yeah, it's wonderful. So you'll see. Once you get there.
iSeek.com. Okay. And then how do you? Is it an app that you install?
Here, I'll send it here. I'll send you the link on Signal real quick, because that's not it. Here you go.
Okay, let me get rid of this.
Ding ding. I mean, I think that's the actual company itself that runs it.
Right?
But so once you go, it's iSeek.com /#web or
Here
/pound.
we go.
There you
Add
go.
a string there. This one.
This right
Okay.
here. So you see there, you can search like general
And
web.
that's you, right? Hanging from that rock?
If someone held a gun to my head and they're like, you have to dangle from a rock like this for 5 seconds or die, I would try it, but I don't think I could do it.
Okay.
I have very little upper body strength. So you'll see there, you can search like general web, medical, education, finance. I tend to just do general web searches. But once you search for something, like, I don't know, pick a topic, any topic.
What were we just talking about?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Sleight of mouth.
Sleight of mouth, there we go. So you'll see it takes a second for it to load because it's doing a lot. So you'll see down on the left side, you'll see your sources, your published date, different topics that are associated with it. You can pop out the organizations tab, locations, people, dates, and times. And then as you scroll down, it'll start populating more results. And I don't quite know how it does it, but if you skip over the stuff that you're looking at, then the next things that it populates will not be as related. And so it will kind of start like crawling through different concepts related to something. I don't know who owns this. I'm sure all of the stuff that I search for is like in some like database somewhere. I don't really care though, because it's such a powerful tool. I use it all the time.
All right. Robert Dilts is the guy who invented sleight of mouth.
Okay.
So.
Robert Dilts. No, that's a high.
But he's not the guy who wrote that book, because Robert Dilts is an academic, and he's
not the.
I don't know. I have this thing about authors. It's like Clayton Christensen is one of my favorite business authors. He wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, and then he wrote a book called The Innovator's Solution, which are very, very interesting business technology innovation books, but they're doctoral dissertations. They're not fun to read, and so then he took the same material and he wrote a book in English called Seeing What's Next. It's all the same material. Like there's nothing new in Seeing What's Next except that it's written for normies. It's not written for college professors.
I think that if you can't explain your concepts to quote unquote normies, then you probably don't know it all that well. Maybe that's a little bit too heavy, painting with too broad of a brush, but I've always found that unless I can explain it to someone who has no idea what I'm talking about, then I myself probably don't know it as inside and out as I think. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I mean, without trying to like jibe too hard over into another subject, I'm
ADD, man.
No, but C. Wright Mills, in his book, The Power Elite, and numerous other authors talk about how specialization has created kind of this tyranny that we're in right now. We're under the tyranny of medical specialists, right? Because we can't possibly understand what Fauci understands, right? So we just have to take his word for everything.
Well,
right?
To question Fauci is to question science, Peter.
Right, exactly. Even though questioning things is science.
Right. That's like we learned this. We started learning the scientific method, I believe, in second grade, and that was like the whole idea: is you form a hypothesis, test it, refute it.
Right, and
adapt it.
Who was I talking to? I think I was talking to somebody last night who was talking about how when George Washington probably died because he was being bled to death by doctors. Because that's what they did then, right?
Just bleed it out.
Just bleed them out. Oops.
Is bloodletting is that a viable treatment for anything these days? I don't think so.
So anyway, but I wanted to tie the. No, it's not. I don't believe that it is. I just wanted to tie this back to your expert speak, though, which is that, to your point, when things are made simple for everyone to understand, it's more democratized, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when I worked at Virgin, when I first started working there, I was hired. I was the director of the web. They gave me my business card, and I went, "Really? Is that a title?" And
okay, sorry. Chris said that they put teeth or mercury in his teeth, in George Washington's teeth. I bet that didn't go well.
They treated him with mercury. Okay, yeah, mercury packed it. Oh, yeah, that probably didn't go well.
So you were the director of the entire web?
Of the entire web, I thought.
You and Al Gore, boy.
Me and Al Gore. So director of the web, and because I was director of the web, again, Virgin is. They decided that I was going to be in charge of the telephone system in the building, because of course the director of the web is in charge of the telephone system. And it was because they didn't have an IT director, and I was as close as they could get. So they take me into this meeting, and Lauren, you were in aerospace, so maybe you'll relate to this. Or
I counted the beans. I didn't do anything aerospace.
Yeah, but there's lots of acronyms. There's lots of acronyms, and acronyms are used by consultants in order to make their clients feel stupid. And
that's a good point.
And so I think it's a psychological effect. And so I was in this meeting with these people who were talking about all of these phone systems using all these 3-letter acronyms that I had no concept of what they meant. And I'd stop somebody and I'd ask them what an acronym meant, and I'd stop somebody else and ask them what an acronym meant. And then behind me on a credenza, there was a basket, and I reached back and I took the basket and I put it on the middle of the table, and I said, "Look, I'm the client, right?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Here are the rules for this meeting. If you use an acronym and everyone at this table does not know what that acronym is, then you put $1 in the basket." Well, within about 2 or 3 minutes, within about 2 or 3 minutes, there were $2 or $3 in the basket. And I would stop the conversation. I would make the person pull out $1. I would make them explain to the room what the acronym meant, and then we would continue. And then finally, one of the guys just got really frustrated, and he said, "Oh, forget it," and he threw a $20 bill. Because he couldn't do it, right? He couldn't speak without the acronyms. But to your point, I noticed this a lot on CNN and these press conferences in the White House and stuff, is that like they love throwing these acronyms around because it makes them seem so smart, right? Because they know what those three letters mean and you don't. So, we live in a tyranny of experts right now. And to your point, I think that making things explainable to everybody is probably in everyone's best interest.
Well, I probably the best financial decision I've ever made in my life, of course, was going to college and deciding to major in English. And I'm actually being completely sarcastic when I say that. However, one of the most interesting classes that we did take in school, I went to Auburn. I didn't go anywhere like super fancy, but I mean, so did Tim Cook. So me and Tim Cook have went to the same college. But one of the classes that I took that was the most interesting to me was a medical literature class, and the whole idea behind the course was explaining, like, medical literature in particular is so removed from. Sorry, there's like cat food all over the floor back there. My cat's messy. Is that doctors and academics tend to be so removed from the people that they're treating, as far as their like level of knowledge, and kind of even removal from the emotions and pain attached to the treatments and things that they're working on, that there's been at least a small push in some corners of the medical academia where they're trying to kind of bridge that gap. There is I believe, I don't know who wrote this. Hang on just a second. It's called The Language of Pain, and talking about how when you go to a doctor and you're in some sort of pain.
And they ask you what number?
Yeah, like on a scale of 1 to 10. And to anybody, like that scale can be so skewed depending on, on a scale of a frowny face to a happy face, how much does this hurt? Like, what does that even mean, And so trying to break down again, kind of going back to like my reference to Derrida earlier, even if I tell you right now, like, oh man, my arm hurts, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, but it's really hard to empathize with things that we can't see and that we can't also experience ourselves. And so that, like, the whole point of that entire class was that doctors and medical professionals can get very removed from that, because they, tend to slice and dice things up into, just the academic sense, which I understand why, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you fix that. So I'm the son of a doctor. And
you son of a doctor.
What?
You son of a doctor.
I'm a son of a doctor, and I can tell you that it's a survival skill, I think, for doctors, because in order to be able to kind of maintain some objectivity, you need to be able to separate yourself from your patients a little bit in order to be able, because you got to maintain your sang-froid, your cold blood. You have to maintain your ability to be analytical and in a moment when emotion may wind up costing somebody their life, right? And so it becomes difficult. And I can tell you, as the son of a doctor, that when my father came home from work at night, like, he had been dealing with other people's problems all day long.
Right.
And the last thing that he wanted to deal with when he got home was somebody else's problem. Like
oh, I'm sure.
He didn't. So being a physician's son is odd. However, I can tell you this, that one of the things that I probably learned from my father was that when I'm in really kind of catastrophically stressful situations, I do have an ability to maintain my cool in a way that I think a lot of other people don't. If my daughter gets mad at me about something, I completely lose my shit. But
I think that we find it the easiest to lose our shit at people that we know we can trust.
Yeah, but
she's still gonna love you.
But in a situation where things are really bad, like I'm pretty good at just maintaining a cool thing.
So this is the
So I just wanted to bring up
go ahead.
that Chris had this idea. Chris, who's watching us right now, had this idea that for a social media network in the 1990s that basically was Facebook. And he tried to build it himself, but Chris owns the domain name, and it's a website that you can go to now. I don't think that there's a lot there, but
What is it?
secretsociety.com.
What a cool domain to open or to own, dude. That's awesome. Secret Society.
Yeah. Yeah, Secret Society. So if you've got any good ideas for Secret Society, I'm sure that I can
This
hook you up
domain
with
is
Chris.
not for sale. He's like, no. Oh, he uses First Headlines too. That's one of my favorite news aggregates.
Yeah.
Cool, man. You should do so much with that site, Chris. Get in contact, man. We can make something happen. So, no, but I totally understand what you mean about. Which I know it's very different on a very different scale. Hello, Taylor. But so I do a stream on my own channel. I do on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturday nights, and sometimes I'll talk for like 2 or 3 hours, just me alone. And so afterwards, like I'll go hang out in my Discord, and I know again this is on a totally different domain from like doctors, but afterwards I'll go hang out in my Discord and we'll just play games and stuff like that, just hanging out for a bit. And every now and then I'll hop in the voice chat with everyone, and they'll start trying to talk politics to me afterwards. And I'm like, I just like sat in front of a camera and just like just word vomited everything that's come up to my head. Like
I was hoarse. I was
3
hoarse
hours.
after. I was
Yeah.
hoarse after our 3.5 hours the other night. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Sometimes the stream ends when I lose my voice, but people start trying to talk politics to me, and I'm like, I don't want to use my brain right now. Like, love you guys, but we can do that like at another time. Look for 50K feet at iSeek to be added. Nice.
The Secret Society. Yeah.
No, iSeek is awesome. Very, very fun.
Anyway, well, this has been lovely. Is there anything else you want to talk about today, Lauren?
Well, so we're gonna do this every Sunday. I guess we might. As far as we're at least.
Yeah, we'll start doing it on Sundays, and I guess Tracy, if we start earlier, Tracy will do it with us.
See, we did the reverse psychology. Like, all right, Tracy, it's fine. We'll do it without you. And she's like, no. I love it. No, I mean, hey, sometimes life gets to be a little bit too much, and sometimes you got to take a step back from stuff. So I totally get it. But I'm excited that she wants to like stay on with it. I think that's
I think it's
So-
great. Yeah, and if you ever want me on your show during the week, let me know. And
Oh no,
You know.
you won everybody over in the course of like a couple hours. There was like, which I'm seeing on the D Live chat right now. People are like, "Oh, Peter's added so many books to my reading list." Yeah, Peter will do that to you. I have an entire folder on my computer labeled recommendations from Peter Duke. That's just like everything that you said to me, so that I can like go through it.
and what's funny is that Tracy's read 1,000 books that I haven't read, so that's that's
nice,
that's
nice
always
Venn
good.
diagram of things that overlap. But yeah, so we'll be doing this on Sundays. I guess maybe the time will change. This was a good
Yeah.
getting back into
I was talking to a friend of mine. He's another photographer named Merkley, and it's Merkley with 3 question marks after it. And I'm reminded, because Chris is watching tonight, that Merkley said that he thought that this show would be more interesting if people pushed back against me.
Ooh.
And so I was thinking about having Merkley as a guest next week because he wanted to push back against me. And as I'm looking at Chris's name scroll by, I'm thinking Chris,
Yeah.
Chris's job. I hired Chris. I worked with Chris at News Corps. We did the xfiles.com, and he's got a funny origin story about how he wound up at 20th Century Fox. He was a level 4 containment suit wearing DNA molecular biologist before he worked at on the X-Files.
Ooh, I want to pick your brain. Sounds fun.
He's a good guy to talk to.
Call me.
But then I hired him again at Virgin, and then I hired him again at at this place that we worked at called Playground, because Chris is a contrarian, and it's funny because I think I'm reading a book right now where they've. What book am I reading? I'm reading.
There's someone outside your window.
Yeah, it's some neighbor.
Okay.
I'm reading Commodore. I think it's the Commodore by about Horatio Hornblower, and there's a character in the movie who's a contrarian, and the thing that's great about having a contrarian around, it's not being contrary for the sake of being contrary. It's being contrary in order to make sure that your levels are set right.
Yeah, of
At
course.
least you're looking at things the right way, and so Merkley is one of those people, and Chris is one of those people who are constantly questioning me about stuff, and I find it intriguing and engaging and exciting to be challenged. So I think Merkley is going to join us next week, and if I can wrangle Chris, maybe Chris wants to do it. Grab the pitchfork. No, level
Do
2
it.
bad.
Level 2 is still pretty big.
What did he say? I was in a BS level 1 lab jockey. Okay.
But level 2.
Okay. Chris
Level
was
2 is where you can't have food in the lab.
yeah.
That's probably
Oh,
good.
level 2, my
standard.
bad. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Chris knows a lot about DNA. Chris used to talk to me for hours about PCR testing
Oh.
in the 1990s.
Ooh.
So
Yeah,
Chris,
Chris, come on my show or come on this show or do something. That'd be great to like pick your
yeah,
brain
you
about
should.
it.
Yeah, you should go. You should go on Lauren's show.
Yeah, will you after the show, will you get me his contact info? If that's okay, Chris.
I will. And he lives
Okay.
near you. He lives in North Carolina.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's still pretty far away. but
It's
yeah.
closer to you than me,
Yes, it would take me like
Yeah.
three days to drive to LA.
right?
Because I did it before and it took a long time.
Yeah, he was a genetic engineer. So, Chris, if you want to talk to somebody about the nuts and
Yeah.
bolts of what's really actually happening right now,
Yeah.
he's your guy. So,
Yeah.
anyway, all right. So, we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Christmas is coming. If you want to get somebody a museum quality photograph framed, if you go to peterdukephoto.com and you click on
It comes with a frame?
but yeah, I found a place that will print them and frame them. Yes,
That's
and
nice.
they're very nice. And of all of your favorite people who have been banned, it's hard it's easy to ban Alex Jones off of YouTube. It's hard to ban him off your wall. And I've got a great picture of Alex Jones at the moment that he realized that January 6th was a setup.
It's
And,
a great shot.
Yep, and I've got all kinds of other kind of like classic photos there. Like I said, I think they're much better than NFTs because you can touch them, you can feel them, you can,
Yeah.
you know.
Hang on. So, Liza Jane, I see your question over on YouTube. I'm not logged into YouTube for the chat, but so you can find, if you go to my website, which is www.somebitchtoldme.com, don't get turned off by the name. It's a serious site, but up at the top, you'll see a link, L's sites and socials. I do a live stream 3 times a week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays on a website called Foxhole, DLive, and on Twitch. Got some new changes coming to it next week. But if you head to my site, then you can find it there. Or if you happen to have Gab, I'm gab.com/somebitchiknow, which I'm almost at 200,000 followers on Gab, which is insane. So
It's not insane.
no, it's a little bit insane.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of insane. I don't know. I'm still just like me in my house in Alabama doing my best. The whole thing's kind of bizarre to me, but I'm happy to have people along for the ride.
Yeah, it's all good. And just so that if people aren't familiar with Lauren's work, Lauren is actually a deep diving researcher who her tagline is "Cite your sources" or GTFO. And I'm 100% in line with that type of research. She's a part of a small club of people. I mean, you were talking about Whitney Webb earlier. That
Oh, she's
amazing.
amazing.
They dig the stuff up and then they put it all together and they put it in one place so that you can follow it from A to Z. And we need more people who are doing that because that's definitely not happening in other places on the internet. So
It takes a long time to do. I haven't put out a new article in a little over a month, which that was because I was getting the live stream set up and all that. But I have a lot coming up. I have 64 like 3/4 to like 7/8 written articles in my drafts. I don't know if you've logged into the back end lately, so it's about to be on. So
Well,
stay
good.
tuned.
Bring it, babe.
Stay
'Cause-
tuned.
Bring it, babe. And then we're gonna be testing commenting engines this week too, right? We're gonna get people to go bang on those things and tell us what they think about the commenting engines, because
Yeah.
we need to move commenting off of the WordPress platform, because
Peter
it's
is my life coach and tech genius and friend.
indeed. All right.
All right, so we good?
Is L is in the David Underdown link. Here's the difference between L and David Underdown. Lauren writes things down.
What is it? Who's David? Underwood?
Dave Underdown. You should have him as a guest on your show one day. He's a guy who's a deep dive researcher like George Webb, but because he learned kind of from George Webb, he has that George Webb kind of prezo, which is where he's got everything in his head. You know, and if you can ask him questions, he's actually a great resource, because if you're actually somebody who writes things down and writes articles, it's fantastic. It's great to have people like that around. But
My life goal is to be able to make enough income at some point where I can just hand my research off to someone who can turn it into articles for me. I hate writing the actual articles themselves, but at least I do it sometimes.
right,
It's
well,
so time consuming trying to like lay it out. I don't know.
it is, and that's why you know, the other guy that we're working with on this project, Sundance, at the
I love him.
Conservative Treehouse is.
Boy, he's a great writer.
Well, not only that, but like, I'll get off the phone with him and he'll call me up and start talking to me about something, and he sprigs out a little, and then
My kind of peeps. to be
I hang up the phone, and an hour and a half later is a 3,000 word article about what we were just talking about. He just sits down and you know, he bangs it out. It's just amazing.
I do not have that.
Somebody
skill.
says, can you say your site again? Yes, PeterDukePhoto.com. It's at like right there, PeterDukePhoto.com at the end. And then, but it's also link in bio on my Twitter and every other place that if you Google Peter Duke Photo, you'll find something and it will link there, I think.
The Annie Leibovitz of the far right.
No, alt-right.
Of the alt-right. Ooh,
Alt-right, yeah, alt-right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What a moniker.
Yeah, it was great. When I was working with Larry Elder on the last day of his campaign, it was great to have the Annie Leibovitz of the alt-right working with the blackface of white supremacy. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyway, all right. Well, we'll see you all again soon, and we'll see you next week. And maybe I'll see you on Lauren's stream. And
come on, anytime.
Lauren and I will talk all the time. All right.
Chris, if you get a random text or call or something here in a minute from a phone number from Alabama, it's me. So.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye now.
everybody.
All right. Bye. And